What's up, everyone? Welcome to the video. We are here breaking down the Xfinity 500 at the Paperclip, Martinsville Speedway for Sunday, October 30th at around 2:30 p.m. Eastern. And I love Martinsville. And this is also the final race of the round of 8. And we'll move on to the championship 4 at Phoenix next weekend. And I love Martinsville. I know the race here early in the year was not great, but it's still a favorite track of mine. 500 laps, just something about short track racing gets me excited, and I'm sure most of you can agree with that. And sadly, that does mean that it's close to the end of the NASCAR season, which sucks because I do enjoy doing the content for this, but at least it's one of the shortest off seasons in all of sports, so at least we have that to look forward to. But it's been a fun year learning this new car together, and hopefully next year things can be a bit more stable and consistent like they have been in seasons past with the Gen 6 car. But anyway, if you do end up enjoying today's free content, the only thing I ask in return, just a very small favor, but if you can leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and hit that bell so you know if whenever I post new content. If you feel like you have anything to say or you have any questions, feel free to put those down in the comments section below. And don't forget to check out the sponsor of the show, PrizePicks, because they do make these videos possible. And as of right now, if you're new signing over on the website, you can use promo code CPEN to get an instant deposit match bonus up to $100. No strings attached. It is free money. Use it to your advantage. And they do post an NFL PrizePicks video every single week if you want to check those out. With that being said, I think that'll be it for the plug. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. And as previously mentioned, this is your Xfinity 500. Always a big fan when the name of the race is something very simple instead of having 4 different companies sponsoring the race and presented by Walmart or something like that. This is Martinsville Speedway. There's your outline of the track. Looks like a paperclip, which is why it has its nickname. It's a short, flat track, just about a half-mile in length, 0.53 something to be exact, but let's try not to get too specific here. And we have 500 laps on the schedule. I believe the first race this year was only 400, so some extra Dominator points mixed in this time around, and that's 350 to be exact. So Dominator points, very important this week. If you don't have at least 2 DOMs per lineup, you are doing it wrong. And yes, I know there is some pretty nice place differential plays this week, but please keep in mind, while it's nice to have those place differential points, they're really missing out on that extremely high ceiling where we saw last week a guy like Kyle Larson can rack up 150 DraftKings points, and someone can certainly do that at a race like this if they stay up front long enough, and these laps are going to go by very, very quickly. So just keep that in mind. You're going to need at least 2 guys that can lead a lot of laps in this race to make it in tournaments. And moving on to the driver-by-driver breakdown portion here. If you're wondering my overall thoughts on the pricing this week, I think it makes sense. We do have 3 guys in the 11K range, which is good for a 500 lap race because you need to be able to pay a premium for these Dominators. It sucks when it's almost too easy to fit in a bunch of DOMs because then a lot of people are on the same strategy. And meanwhile, when you have tighter pricing like this up top, some people might shy away from that, even though I think it's usually the right way to go. Now, there are some guys I think are a bit too cheap and some that are a bit too expensive. We will talk about that. And if you do want access to the sheet, I know it's just about the end of the season, but I do cover other sports as well. I do have the All Sports Access page. We have NFL going on, a couple more NASCAR races. We have the NBA going on each and every single day. So I'm still covering stuff a lot. So don't think you're just missing out if you do sign up just for the last couple of races. And I do projections, optimizers, ownership projections, cheat sheets, all that fun stuff for each and every single sport. So come and check it out. Don't think you'll be too disappointed. But anyway, let's start up top here with Kyle Larson, $11,700. Was kind of surprised he was the most expensive driver on DraftKings this week, and over on FanDuel he was $10,000, so much better play over there in my opinion. But he qualified on the pole, which it really sucks because, look, I don't think Larson's a bad driver, obviously. You guys know I'll play Larson every single week. I played him last week, and obviously that proved to be the right decision. But Homestead's a really good track for him. Martinsville, on the other hand, he hasn't really been his best track. Short flat tracks for Kyle Larson have never really been his bread and butter. And if you're looking at his numbers in Martinsville, sure, he's led some laps here before, but only 1 top 5, 2 top 10s, and definitely has not been the best driver by any means. But qualifying the pole and being pretty strong in practice, 4th in the 1 lap, 2nd in the 5, it was kind of, I mean, it wasn't bad or anything, but in the 10, 15 lap runs, he was 7th and 6th, but then got even better in the longer run here. Not as many drivers ran long runs as far as 20, 25, 30 laps. Some guys got up to 50, but I don't want to expand it that far. So he has a good car. He's on the pole. Like, if he leads you 80 laps here, I don't think he's going to win this race. I don't think he's going to have the best car. But starting up front's a big deal in Martinsville. It was hard to pass. We saw that in the spring. So he's definitely in a great spot here. I just wish he wasn't the most expensive driver on DraftKings. But if he leads you 100-plus laps, that's not going to matter. As long as he doesn't have any issues during the race, he's more than likely going to be in the optimal. Now, I'm not exactly sure how ownership's going to shake out yet or in projections. I have not been able to run that. But I have to imagine he's going to be one of the highest projected guys. It's just Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney starting right behind him. Those guys are much better at Martinsville, and I feel like I might have more interest in them. And we will talk about that. But Larson, he's a good play nonetheless. If I'm playing 3 max, I'm going to have him at least 1. I think the question comes down, do I want him in 2 or 1? So that's kind of my standing as of right now. I'll have to see how ownership and my projections stack up afterwards. Denny Hamlin, and these are the updated odds, and he's at plus 650. I think that's only behind Ryan Blaney and Chase Elliott, if I'm looking at this correctly, and then right in front of Denny Hamlin, who we're talking about next. He comes in $11,400, 13K over on FanDuel. He's starting in 11th. He was first in the 1 lap in practice, then trailed off in the longer runs here, 12th, 10th, 9th, 9th, which kind of corresponds with where he qualified. And Toyotas in general didn't really impress me too much. Hamlin, I would say, was probably the best of the bunch, but Kyle Busch wasn't super impressive. Truex was terrible in practice and in qualifying. And then Christopher Bell, $9,300. He was a bit better in practice, but he did qualify poorly, but we'll talk about him in a little bit. Don't want to get too ahead of myself. But Hamlin's a fine play. He's starting in 11th, but to be honest, I think I would rather get to a guy like Chase Elliott. I think I would rather get to guys like William Byron, who are also fast in practice, and obviously both those guys killed it earlier in the season at Martinsville. But Hamlin's all right. I mean, short flat tracks he's always been very good at. Looking at Martinsville the past few seasons, I think it's 3rd most laps led per race and also 3rd in fast laps, so it's not like he's been bad or anything. And finish-wise at the short flats this year, 4th at Richmond, 6th at New Hampshire, 20th at Martinsville early in the season, though. Him and Martin Truex were absolutely awful at Martinsville, which is a little concerning, but that was a long time ago, and Toyotas have definitely gotten a bit better since then. 1 at Richmond and then 13th at Phoenix. I don't have an issue with Hamlin. It's just the fact that I'm not really sure he's going to be faster than guys like Blaney, like Elliott, like Larson to be able to lead some laps, which you definitely need at that price point. And then Chase Elliott, $11,200. He is starting in 2nd. I'm thinking Kyle Larson, after what he did last week and starting in the pole, will at least draw some ownership away from Chase. But that's probably a mistake because he is really freaking good at Martinsville. He dominated here earlier in the season, did finish in 10th, but he was really good, really fast. If you're looking at the recent track history, he actually has the best average driver rating, 3 top 5s, has a win under his belt, the 2nd most laps led, and tied for the most fast laps with Martin Truex Jr. And he was also a bit faster in practice than Hamlin, 3rd, 5th, 5th, 4th, 3rd, 4th, and 4th in the 30 laps. So I have no problem with Chase. If he's going to be lower owned in tournaments, I want to be overweight, and he's 100% being played in my 3 max, not 100% of my lineups, but I know I'm going to have him at least 1, possibly 2. Definitely a big fan of Chase here. William Byron starting off this 10K range, very expensive, but I understand with what he did earlier in the year at Martinsville where he got his win. But starting in 25th, we have a nice PD play here. He was also pretty fast in practice, tried off a little bit in the 15-20 lap runs, but I'd really like to see what he did for a 25 and 30, but unfortunately we did not get to see that. But he's very good at Martinsville. The past 6 races here, 4 top 5s, 5 top 10s, has a win. That was most recently, just several months ago. But 1 at Martinsville, 3rd at Richmond early in the season, then 11th and 11th at the recent 2 short flat tracks. But I'm liking him a lot here. He's been pretty good at the short flat tracks the past couple of seasons, and if you're looking for a PD play, he's definitely one of the top guys. The thing is, though, if you're using William Byron, you can't pair him with guys like, say, Denny Hamlin or Martin Truex Jr. or Christopher Bell, because you need some guys up front to be able to it just meshes well, because if you've got rostered 2 place differential drivers, you're missing out on those early dom points. So I think William Byron, if you're going to use him, pair him with a guy like Kyle Larson, pair him with a Chase Elliott. You can't really pair him with 2 big PD guys because you're really missing out on the potential ceiling, because William Byron's got to move his way through the field, and it's not going to happen too quickly, I don't think, at a track like Martinsville. It's certainly going to take some time. More so a stage 3, late stage 2 kind of guy. I'm viewing him as a potential dominator, but he was fast in practice and should be solid during the race. Ryan Blaney, $10,400. He's starting in 4th. And I'm a huge fan of Ryan Blaney here this week. I think him and Chase Elliott are my 2 favorite dominator plays. Obviously, Kyle Larson you have to look at as well because he's on the pole, but excluding Kyle Larson, I would be very shocked if Elliott and Blaney will get up front at some point. And Blaney was the big winner in practice. 2nd, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. So no worse than 3rd on the charts here. He's got a good short run car, good long run car. I'd be very shocked if Ryan Blaney doesn't get up front at some point. If you're looking at his numbers in Martinsville, one of the best drivers here is 4 top 5s the past 6 races. Average finish of 5.8, which is only behind Joey Logano, his teammate, and also the 3rd best average running position, and some of the most laps led and dominator points in general per race. And he's also been good at the short flat tracks this year. I think green flag speed wise, he's either believe he's in the top 3. I can't remember if he's first or second, but he is up there in the charts. Do have that section on my spreadsheet here, but I'm not going to pull that up. But love him Blaney here. Fast in practice, fast and short flat tracks. He checks all the boxes for me. Kind of pricey, but does have the second best odds to win this race in Vegas, only behind Chase Elliott, so I'm definitely a fan here. Joey Logano, $10,000. He is starting in 12th. Wasn't nearly as fast in practice. Thing is, though, he was good at Martinsville earlier in the season. Also very good at short flat tracks. But I would honestly rather get to Ryan Blaney here. Not saying I'm going to completely fade Joey Logano. It's just they're similar plays, just one starting closer to the front, so it has an easier path to dominating. Because if Joey Logano does not dominate during this race, I have a hard time seeing him being optimal at that 5-figure price range. Dropping down to the 9K guys, we have Ross Chastain, $9,700. He's starting in 9th. Wasn't super impressive in practice. Was pretty solid at the Martinsville race earlier in the season. He was one of the few cars that could actually pass guys. I want to say he started in the 20s or it was the late teens. Forget exactly, but he finished 5th in that race. It's just he's nearly $10,000 starting in 9th. I don't really see him getting up front here. I see him as more so like an 8th to 12th place car, which is fine, but not at that price point. Truex, $9,500. He's starting in 27th, kind of getting deja vu from what we saw early in the year where he started in the back, and he's really good at Martinsville. I mean, it's in his name, Martin. And I use that same thought process, but also the same thought process of, well, I need guys that can dominate. And while the PD is nice, I don't want to chase the floor. I want to chase the ceiling. And that's why I was super heavy on guys like Elliott and Byron, because they had fast cars. They were starting at the front, and I thought they would outscore guys like Hamlin and Truex, and that happened to be the case. But it's really easy to get sucked in because of how good he is here. He's averaging nearly 100 DraftKings points per race, 6.7 running position. He's won half the races here the past 6 races, 4 top 5s, the most dominator points. Like, it's really tough to not want to play Truex here. And good at the short flats this year, besides Phoenix and besides Martinsville, we had an issue with Phoenix. And if you're looking at practice, though, it was pretty bad for Truex, which was the case early in the year at Martinsville. 22nd, 23rd, 22nd. I think the right play here is to probably be underweight on Truex and try to get more exposure to guys up front that can dominate. Christopher Bell, $9,300. He's starting in 20th. Like, if I had to choose between Truex and Bell, I'm taking Bell here. He looks like he has a much faster car, arguably top 6, top 5 speeds, and just a wizard at the short flat track, so I'm definitely a fan of Bell there. And if Truex is going to be high round, I would rather get the leverage on Christopher. Dropping down to the 8K range, we have Kyle Busch, $8,900, starting in 18th, and it's crazy at this point of the season we see Kyle Busch at this price point, and I'm not even like super enticed about it. Like, if this was like halfway point of the year or early on in the season, I'd be like, heck yeah, I'm going all in on Kyle Busch, $8,900. But Martinsville, I wouldn't say it's his best track. Like, he's not terrible here by any means. He has 4 top 10s the past 6 races. Just not getting any dominator points, and looks like he's got a fringe teens car in practice. I'm probably going to pass, even though he's cheap. Kevin Harvick, $8,700. He's starting in 8th. Should be a pretty popular play on FanDuel. It's just he was pretty bad in practice. Like, he was terrible. But the thing is, with Kevin Harvick, I try not to get too caught up in his practice numbers because he always seems to sandbag it a bit. Sometimes he's really good in practice, and that translates during the race. And sometimes he's bad in practice, and he's fine in the race. I think it's one of those cases where, as good as Harvick has been at the short flat tracks the past couple of seasons, I have a hard time seeing him really struggle that much in practice. I don't think we're going to see Harvick riding around the 25th, 30th place range. And if you're looking at this season so far, at the short flats, won at Richmond recently, 5th in New Hampshire. Select the Gateway had an issue there, I believe. 14th at Martinsville, 2nd at Richmond, and then 6th at Phoenix. I would say Martinsville is probably my least favorite track to play him at a short flat, but I think in tournaments it's fine. It's kind of tough because you can get Reddick here starting in 28th, who at least had a faster car in practice, $8,400, 5th, 9th in the 10 lap, then fell off 18th in the 15 lap, but he's starting all the way back in 28th. If we're playing cash games, I assume he's going to be pretty popular. I have no problem with that, but I don't expect him to just rip through the field, but by the end of the day, I think he's going to be contending for a top 15, top 12. But in tournaments, it is worth considering pivoting to guys like Daniel Suarez or Kevin Harvick, just because if track position is going to be big and passing will be minimal, it just might make more sense to go that route, especially if they can pick up some fast laps while they're up front. Daniel Suarez starting in 7th. I love the price on FanDuel. It's really hard to get away from that. I think he can kind of hold his ground in the top 10, top 12. It's just starting in 7th. I do kind of have a hard time seeing him improve upon that position. He finished 20th at Martinsville earlier in the season, and his best finish at a short flat track this year is also 9th place, which Ninth place would not be bad starting in 7th, especially on FanDuel at that price point, but on DraftKings, I think he's a bit tougher of a play. Chase Briscoe, $8,000. He's starting in 3rd. Really tough to get there at that price point, but it seems like I always never have enough Chase Briscoe, then he just surprises me by the end of the race. And he was pretty fast in practice, too. He was 2nd in the 15, 5th in the 20, 25, and 30 lap runs in practice. He's only $8,000, and then the off chance he gets up front and dominates, well, he's going to absolutely kill that price point. So he's going to be more so a large field tournament play. 3 max, you're really pushing it. I mean, really pushing it, but I'd probably start to filter him in once I start building 20 lineups. Dropping down to the 7K range, we have Bubba Wallace, who's returning from his 1-week suspension after getting into it with Kyle Larson after it looks like Wallace just intentionally wrecked Larson, which that was a crazy time. But he's starting at 24th. He's $7,900. Looks like he's got a top 10, top 15 car according to practice. I am not totally against using Bubba here. Does have a couple top 15s, 4 top 20s. Past 6 races here, finished 16th early in the season. I'm right with Bubba. I'm not going to go my way to play him, but if he ends up being like the last piece fit guy, I don't really have too much of a problem with it. AJ Allmendinger, $7,700. He's starting in 21st. Don't think he's a bad play here. Martinsville is just finished 24th here early in the season, but 10th at Gateway, 16th at New Hampshire. But Dinger's had a lot of speed recently, and in practice, looks like he has about a fringe top 15 car. I would say Bubba's probably going to be higher owned, so if you're looking for a pivot, don't have a problem with Dinger. Austin Dillon, $7,600. He's starting in 16th. He was extremely fast in Martinsville early in the season. Like, he came out of nowhere because I believe, if I remember correctly, he struggled in practice, but he just flew through the field. Was one of the only drivers that could pass him and Ross Chastain. But he finished, I believe, 3rd at Martinsville. He was extremely good during that race. Also 10th at Richmond and 16th at the 2 Richmond races this year. I think he's a fine tournament play. I think Dinger and Wallace probably see more ownership, and he also showed some nice long run speed in practice, where Austin Dillon cracked the top 10 after the 15-lap averages, which was even a little bit better than Bubba Wallace, kind of right on par there, but should have lower ownership, so I'm fine with Dillon in tournaments. Keselowski, $7,500. He's starting in 6th. Has actually some pretty decent odds to win this race. Problem is, though, man, he's starting in 6th. That's really tough, but Keselowski at Martinsville, he is pretty darn good here. Obviously, that was in Penske equipment, but he has 4 top 5s, obviously 4 top 10s, and a good chunk of dominator points. It's just a few seasons ago, I should say probably more than a few seasons ago. I want to say it was like 5 years ago, Keselowski led almost all 500 laps here at a Martinsville race. It was quite boring, but I mean, he absolutely crushed it. So the upside is there for him. It's just he's more of a large field tournament play because with where he's starting, there's certainly a lot of downside. Noah Gragson sucked in practice, starting in 17th. I'm probably not going to get to him here. I know he's in the 48 car. Hendrick looks like they got some speed this weekend. Larson's fast, Elliott's fast, Byron's fast, but man, he was the one guy that just did not show any speed whatsoever. Austin Cindric, $7,100. He's starting in 30th. Also a guy that wasn't super fast in practice, but at his price point and where he's starting, I don't think it's necessarily the worst play in the world, especially because he was pretty solid at Martinsville earlier in the season. If you're looking at the past 4 races at short flat tracks, 12th, 13th, 11th, and 11th. So I'm fine with Cindric as a cash game play starting in 30th. I wish he showed more speed in practice, but at that price point, it definitely can make things work. Eric Almirola, $7,000. He's starting in 15th, and I like him as a pivot off of Cindric. I'm really hoping he has more ownership because I think Almirola is a fantastic play here. One of the best cars in practice and seemed to get even faster over the course of a long run here. And just short flat tracks with a lot of these Stewart-Haas cars, that seems to be their bread and butter. He's got 3 top 10s here the past 6 races. Finished 8th here early in the season. Had a top 5 at Gateway. I think Almirola is one of the better tournament plays on the entire slate. Chris Buescher, $6,900. He's starting in 22nd, and I always am kind of fond of playing Chris Buescher in Martinsville. Usually a consistent top 15 guy. Actually has 5 top 15s the past 6 races here. And he finished 3rd at Richmond, 15th at Martinsville early in the season, and also 15th at Richmond, 10th at Phoenix, and 17th at New Hampshire. So for where he's starting, he's definitely a very solid play and someone that's going to be in my player pool. Eric Jones is kind of in a similar boat here at $6,700. He's starting in 23rd. And while he was fast in the short run in practice, 6th in the 1 lap and 10th in the 5 lap, did fall off a bit here, 19th, 20th, and 20th in the 10 through 20 lap runs, which kind of corresponds with where he qualified. And Chris Buescher, I forgot to mention him, but he was pretty slow in practice. But I do think he is going to show a little bit more speed than that during the race. So it's my only concerns where they're kind of stuck mid-pack, but they are fine place, differential plays. Michael McDowell, not going to touch him here starting in 13th. Looking at his history at Martinsville, not been great. Has one top 15, only one top 20, and the short flat tracks have not been very good for him at all. He's been a lot better at the bigger tracks this season, but best finish was 18th. Besides that, 25th, which was actually at Martinsville, but 25th is not going to get it done, starting 13th. Cole Custer starting way too high for me. I remember the last Martinsville race, Cole Custer started near the front. He was actually able to hold his ground for a little while, but it didn't end up happening. I think he had a penalty at some point, kind of screwed him, but he finished 21st. And besides finishing 16th at Phoenix, it's just been a rough time for him at these track types. So I'm going to pass starting in 5th. Ty Gibbs probably going to be a pass for me again, $6,100. I mean, if you need a cheap PD play and you have $6,100 left, sure. Play Ty Gibbs. I would not be too mad about it, but I mean, he's just really slow in practice, and my hopes are not that high for him. Ricky Stenhouse, $5,900. He's starting in 31st. Actually showed a decent amount of speed in practice. About top 12 runs after the 10-lap consecutive data, which is not bad at all, but I mean, looking at his history at Martinsville, it's all right. I mean, average finish of around 20th place, running position of 20th, 4 top 20s and 2 top 15s. The thing is, though, he's cheap and he's starting outside 30th place, which is definitely going to make him viable. But he finished 27th at Martinsville in the season. He'll finish better than 22nd. He's nothing besides just a cheap place differential play. That's really the nicest thing I can say about him. Justin Haley, $5,700. He's starting in 29th. Did have a nice 14th place finish at Gateway early in the season, but 31st at Martinsville, starting near the back of the pack. I don't really see him improving upon his position too much. I mean, we saw passing was a little bit difficult last time here. There's just not any room on the track, really. So, and it kind of corresponds with where he wins in practice as well. So, some pretty low expectations on Justin Haley. Harrison Burton starting a little bit too high for me to be viable. Large field tournament play, only like a few percentages, and just hope he stays within the top 12. Ty Dillon, he's probably the preferred punt option down here besides Ricky Stenhouse, but he was pretty slow in practice, 18th in the 25 lap, but I think only 18 guys ran a 25 lap run in practice, so he was dead last in that category. And if you're looking at his history at Martinsville, I believe he has one top 20 finish, and he was 23rd here early in the season. It's just, the thing is though, if he finishes 23rd, you'll take that at that price point for where he's starting. I mean, he's not a terrible play, it's just to fit in some studs up top. Corey LaJoie starting way too high for me in 14th. Landon Castle at 33rd. He's just going to be slow during the race. Unless there's a bunch of carnage, I don't really see him improving upon that too much. A little bit faster than this in practice, though. Like, again, all these pump plays, they're playable. Just don't expect much. Just hope you nail your dominators. Todd Gilliland starting inside the top 20. That's really rough to get to. Thing is, though, at that price point, I mean, it's tough to maybe say complete fade, because if he finishes around 20th place at $4,800, that's going to allow you to fit in multiple guys like Chase Elliott, like Kyle Larson. So I'm not completely against the Todd Gilliland train, because he does have some decent track position to work with at the beginning. And then Ware, Yaley, McLeod, I just can't get to. But with that being said, that's all I got for you guys this week. I hope you did enjoy, and if you did, make sure you leave a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Any comment, any questions or concerns, or if you just want to tell me hi, you can do that down below in the comments section. But I wish you all the best of luck, and I'll see you all next time.